Hello, everybody. Happy January 4th, 2021. It's no longer 2020 as we turn the calendar over to a fresh new year. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, a special edition where I talk to two coaches from the Connecticut high school ranks on the football side, one a returning guest, another a new guest. I'll introduce the returning guest. He's the head coach for Rockville. His name, Coach Erick Knickerbocker. Coach, it's great to have you back on.
Great to talk to you in 2021. Hopefully we can talk about football this year.
Yeah, one could hope. And speaking of that, a new guest from Platt, the offensive coordinator who kind of got me a couple months ago on a job that I thought he had. Come to find out, and I forgot, it was from a movie. Coach Frederick. Coach, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Chris, thank you for having me on. Happy New Year.
Appreciate it. You know, guys, this is where I would think, because now it's 2021. We move beyond 2020, which was a pile of poo. We don't want to ever see that again. But there's a big discussion going to be made, or at least discussions, I should say. And I'll go to Coach Frederick first. January 7th, the CIAC is going to be having talks about as far as winter sports and how that's going to be delegated. For you, I know there's two as far as the 7th and the 14th, but what's kind of going through your mind with those discussions about to be happening?
Yeah, I think once, the CIAC decided to postpone the winter, I felt that, sealed that alternate season's fate. I just don't see how we're going to be able to get an alternate season in between the winter and then when spring starts up again.
Coach Knickerbocker, same question for you, because when you look at as far as kind of what the fall was like, and then you see winter was pushed back, in some ways kind of how football was, it was just kicking the can down the road. I know as far as kind of the way these seasons were for both the fall sports and I know winter sports want to play, kind of what's your opinion on that?
I think the fall taught us a lot. With almost 40 states playing and even some towns playing in Connecticut, I think we found out that the virus, it's going to spread, but it doesn't spread any more in football than it does in other sports. And I think from everything I've read, and I try to read a lot on it, that's pretty clear. And to me, that was kind of what we were told. One of the reasons we couldn't play was they wanted, football was too dangerous. And by the spring, maybe they could see if it didn't spread. And, that's the thing I feel like is clear at this point. So if anyone's going to play, I feel like our players deserve a chance to play. I agree with Coach Frederick. I don't right now. And again, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but I don't see a plan in place with the current situation for us to play. I just don't see that, I don't see it in the cards right now.
It's difficult, guys, because when you kind of think about it, it's like it's a numbers game, or in this case, a days game, because you only have so many days to work with before you start getting into that, summer part, and then who knows what that's even going to be. I don't even think the CIAC knows. But I think kind of looking at now, stay with Coach Knickerbocker here, the one thing that kind of really struck me, and going back to even when the CIAC made the promise about having football in the second alternative season, whatever you want to call it, the first thing to my mind was, why are you promising something when we don't even know, A, what this virus is, and two, we can't even predict how next week is going to be. So why would you promise something when you basically have to come through, and if you don't, you're going to be crucified 10 times worse than what you were in the fall?
Yeah, I think it was an unfortunate situation. I think after the rally at Hartford, I think it was clear how passionate the football community is in this state. And I think just canceling it at that point would have been really tough. What I would have liked to see was a more concrete plan for us to play. Listen, I understand all the situations of the spring, and they don't want players to have to choose, but how are other states doing this? And these are questions that I feel like are not really being answered. Like, other states are planning to play in the spring. How is it working there? There's small towns all across America, and they're finding ways to do it. And maybe that's happening behind closed doors, but we don't really know what's going on. I think that's the hardest part for all of us as coaches and football players. We're very detailed oriented and not knowing what's going on and waiting. One thing I've been saying for a long time is I understand, and it was terrible what happened to the winter athletes in their tournaments and what happened to the spring sports players, but they haven't been waiting for 8 to 10 months. Our players have been waiting, and I don't think anyone understands this. Like, our players, we started in July. And since July, even before July, our players have been waiting for a season. And I don't think people understand what that's mentally done to all of these young men and women and coaches and everyone that's involved in the impact that's had just on our sport. And I think that's kind of gotten lost in all of this.
I want to hit on that real quick, and I'll go to Coach Frederick here. The mental side, the psychological side for the men and women who are playing high school football, because I think that's something that, and I mentioned this a lot in the fall about the mental aspect. Why is that not being talked about? Because, you get told 1 week you're playing, you're prepared, you're ready. And then it's like, no, you can't because you got to do this and that. Well, then you, the coaches and the players, follow protocols, make sure you do everything right. And then just when you're about to somewhat get things going, you got to pause and then it's canceled. It's like the mental toll. I mean, how has it been for your program? I know Coach Bruin has been doing his best and the staff as well.
Yeah, I think just kind of piggyback off of what Coach just said. Football is probably the most unique sport out there. Like Coach just said, basketball, baseball, golf, those are all we're able to still be able to, be played during the spring and summer. So those kids that, lost their spring season, even though it wasn't, with their high school team, they were still able to play. So on the football side of it, we've been waiting since last, end of November, beginning of December. And then when you're told that, it's a go, and then it stops and it starts again and stops, and, now it's canceled, or, now we're going to look at an alternate season. Yeah. And it's draining. I mean, we were able to play independently this year for 3 games. We lost our last week. But, even that, I mean, that was a day-to-day. That was a, week-to-week type thing. So, I mean, even though we almost made it to November, I mean, it felt like, a full season just because of the emotional, mental toll it took on all of us.
And the players, Coach Frederick, that were a part of the independent league, how were they? Because I'm sure they were ecstatic that they were able to play, but I almost feel like at the same time, it's kind of like it's a two-way street because they were able to play and get something out and get film and such. But then at the same time, they have friends or cousins or whoever that play for other schools. And it's like, well, I'm playing, but they're not. So it's like, you're happy, but then you're not at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the teams that were able to play, through the independent league, it wasn't the same. People can say that, we were able to get 4 or 6 games in. Obviously, the most important thing was to get some kids some exposure and get them some, video out there, if they're, looking to play college football. But, it was tough. And, I think the kids knew that, not many other schools are playing. And, and they look around the country and they see, teams in, Florida and Texas, and everybody's having a normal season and their positivity rates are much higher than ours. So, it was tough to justify, for them to accept, us not being able to play a real season in a lot of other other states in our country playing real seasons.
Coach Knickerbocker, I know you feel very, very strongly about, the fact that, kind of what Frederick, Coach Frederick alluded to, which was, having to tell your players, we can't play, but across the street, that team can play. And I can only imagine how difficult that was for you, especially to tell, your players who I know you've been there for, some time. And I know you have a very strong connection with the players, and the players just love playing Rockville football.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the longer this goes on, the harder it is to maintain those types of relationships. I mean, only so many Zoom meetings. Our kids are so zoomed out, and we continue to be, everyone's like, oh, engage with them on Zoom. They're zoomed out. How much more Zoom can you possibly do? Let's be honest. That connection and that passion, all those things I'm so concerned about going forward. But yeah, we told the kids, I think 2 or 3 times we had team meetings. We had kids crying every single time, in that type of emotion, that type of emptiness. And yeah, we did have towns right around us that were able to play. And I've heard very much the same about the independent leagues, that it's not the same. But I have a few players. One, probably our best returning player, is an all-state player last year. I'm trying to help get him recruited, and I'm getting the feedback I'm getting is there's no film on him. Yeah, he looked good as a junior, no film on him. How is that fair when all kids from all these other states have an unfair advantage? Now, what am I supposed to tell that player? And these are the types of things that are starting to come past my desk now. And it's like, it's so disheartening because you got a player that's put in so much work, so much effort to put themselves in a situation for their senior season. And now I can't even get them coaches interested because they can't see what that player was going to maybe do this year. And that's not, I understand 90% of my seniors probably aren't playing, but this is the last chance they ever would play. You can't go play pickup football. I mean, listen, I'm a terrible basketball player, but I played basketball. I played men's league until I was about 30 years old. I play softball. I could play golf, and I'm not trying to take away. And I think seeing some of the stuff on social media, people think we're football coaches trying to take away, so their sport's more important. Like Coach says, it's unique. There's nothing like it, and you can't replicate it. And to just take it away, it's not only opportunities down the road. It could be life-changing opportunities. If I didn't have football my senior year, I wouldn't be a teacher. I wouldn't be a coach. I'm directly my success, or what I would like to call it, because success in life has to do with my football coaches and that structure of having football in my life at the most important time. We've had players that have gone through unbelievable traumatic experiences this year outside of football that we can't now. They have no outlet. And that has been the most painful thing is there's nothing we can do to help them other than talk to them. And that's been really tough.
Coach Frederick, is there anything as far, because I can only imagine, I know each program has, something different as far as what their players are dealing with. Has Platt kind of dealt with the same issues? I understand you played a couple games, but still, this affects everybody in different ways. So is there anything that you can share?
Yeah, I think we were in a little bbit different situation because we were able to, we really never got shut down until the last week of October. So, I mean, we did have some normalcy. I will say that. Again, like I said, it wasn't really a real season, but being able to be around the kids pretty much 7 days a week, 6 days a week, certainly helped. But yeah, I mean, we won't know the aftershocks of this, for years. The past that, this pandemic, has caused, that altered paths of kids and where, what they would do. Like Coach said, if we had a season this year, where some of his kids would end up next year. And it's really, life-changing in some aspects of, for some of these kids and, what their paths would be, after high school.
Have you kind of gone through, Coach Frederick, the same issues as far as with coaches saying, we like this player, but we need more film? Has there been, I know you're very, Twitter savvy. I mean, you got me a couple months ago. I alluded to that in the beginning, and that was impressive by you. But have you been able to find ways to pump out as much information and just trying to get the players as much attention as possible?
Yeah, I mean, some things that was unique about the pandemic, especially in the off season, we were able to participate in a lot of Zoom meetings with college coaches. They presented a ton. So I was able to connect with some of the coaches, after Zoom meetings and reach out and talk to them about some of our players. So that certainly helped. But again, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not playing, live football, 11 on 11, it's tough to get exposure. And some of the things that hurt our kids this year was not being able to go to, camps. The colleges put on and running a 40 in front of them, just the college coach getting that eye test. And that's a huge part of the recruiting now. And, that was stripped from them. And, hopefully next year's senior class will be able to get that back in the spring. These kids can go to camps and, college coaches can, get in front of them live. We were lucky. Wesleyan held a camp over the summer for us down here at Platt. A lot of kids from across the states. Some kids from out of state came down and participated in it. It was a 3-day, 1-day camp, 3 days of 1 days. And then, we did have college coaches come down to some of our practices, some of the independent league games. So, we try to do the best we can with it and try to do the best we can for the kids. But it's just been a tremendously difficult situation for everyone.
Coach Knickerbocker, same question for you. Has there been any way to try to get I know it's been difficult, but any any information to be able to pump out, or just trying to do, I'm sure you and your staff are doing as much as possible to get, information out about the players that coaches want to know about?
Yeah, and I think it hurts us a little bit. I mean, we're still relatively new here at Rockville. I mean, this would be our third season. So I don't think we have as many, I think coaches that have all those strong relationships with college coaches it'd be a little bit easier. But we're trying our best to connect the best we can. But again, the feedback I've gotten back is, and it's not only that they haven't seen film, but there's a trickle down effect that schools, that might be offering scholarships, they don't have spots either. So, I mean, because a lot of those players, they didn't play. If they're smaller Division I schools, maybe they didn't play, and they don't have as many spots open or available. So, I mean, the feedback from college coaches, I will say, has been outstanding. Like the ones I've reached out, they take time to look through things. They give you good feedback. And I know that a lot of their day-to-day has been completely changed. And I got to give a lot of props to them because, again, being a newer coach, just getting that feedback. Sometimes you send emails and you would never hear back. This year, I'm hearing back from everybody. They're taking time to look things over, and they're giving you honest feedback. And I think I really appreciate that. It doesn't help the kid right now. It's not helping the kids, but we're doing the best that we can.
I think the one thing that 2020, or looking back real quick, 2020 kind of taught as far as change and I think patience, because from March on, we were shut down for a long time, and we kind of had to be patient, diligent, make sure we follow the protocols with the virus and everything. But I think, and I'll stay with Coach Knickerbocker here, I think the one thing that really impressed me was throughout the shutdown here in Connecticut, I saw constant video from players all over the state, because gyms were closed, so you couldn't go to a gym to work out. So they found ways to be able to work out. And I just was so flabbergasted in a good way, because players in Connecticut found ways to work out. That just shows how determined, and it didn't matter if it was the 55th kid on the roster or the star quarterback. They were doing everything possible to play when they didn't even know if there was going to be a season.
Yeah, I mean, we had a few kids that, their parents were kind of nervous, especially early in the summer, about them coming out. And they'd send me videos of them at their own park doing workouts, and again, having no assurances they were going to play. And when we had our conditioning over the summer, we continued at coaches every night saying, these guys are just giving everything because they just missed being out there. And listen, July, we were allowed to condition for an hour in groups. That's not traditionally, that is not anything any high school player is looking to do. But we were getting our full roster on those nights, just showing up and giving everything they had. And like I said, the kids that couldn't, they were finding ways. But I'm worried about that now. That isn't happening as much now, because kids have lost some of that hope, because they put in you're not talking about weeks, you're talking about months of working out, training. And now they are asking the question, for what? And we haven't had an answer. And it's easy to say, let's blame someone else. But at the end of the day, as coaches, and I'm sure Coach feels the same way, we all feel like we've let the kids down, because we're not providing what we know they need. And I think that makes it really hard. They put all this time and effort in, and it's like, oh, that's good. And now they're saying, for what? And I don't know what to tell them. And I think that's a tough thing at this point.
Coach, I understand your thoughts and feelings, but at the same time, I feel like if you're not given the tools, you can't build the proper house. If you can't fix the bathroom sink and you don't have the tools, well, there's only so much that you can do with some glue and, whatever else you can find in the house, and I'll go to Coach Frederick here, kind of looking at this, again, we'll go back real quick. January 7th and 14th is when the CIAC is going to be talking and discussing the winner. From people I've talked to, there's not a lot of, I get mixed, but it's more of I don't know what's going to happen. For you specifically, if for some reason they end up postponing or even canceling football, what are the chances? Do you feel positive that there will be a fall season? Because I feel like if you cancel the second semester, whatever you want to call it, fall, you would think with the vaccine and everything, there would be a good possibility, no?
Yeah, you would think. At this point right now, with the vaccine being available, we saw that the virus it doesn't spread as much, in the warmer weather. So, and I thought, this year, again, hindsight's always 2020, but if they had flipped spring and fall, I think that would have been the best move. I always felt that, our best opportunity was from the beginning of August to the end of October. I was just fearful once we got into the colder months, especially in general, it's usually the cold and flu season, anyways. And, with the coronavirus out there and no vaccine, it was only going to make things worse. But this is where we are. So, we just have to move forward with it. And, like I said, I'm hopeful, that we'll play a full season and things will get back to normal as much as possible. And, we can give it a go.
One thing too that I saw, this was maybe a week or two ago when Game Time, or no, I think it wasn't Game Time, it was the Hartford Current, where they talked to Glenn Lungarini, who's the CIAC executive director. And he said he was encouraged by the numbers because Connecticut was, I think, at 7%, which is better than what we were a week or two prior. But then I'm like, well, here's the thing. And again, football was basically not played when it was at 0.4%. Right. So if they're like, I can't put it together, and I'll say with Coach Frederick here real quick. Didn't play when it was 0.4%. So now how is it okay when it's at 5 to 6%, when 98, 99% of the states, the districts are in the red? It doesn't make any sense. And we all know, we're all not dumb here. DPH is going to say, no, you can't play. Come on.
Yeah, my biggest issue is what was considered a high-risk sport. Like Coach Knickerbocker said earlier, other sports that, like soccer. These guys are on corner kicks. They're all around each other. Who's making the decision that soccer is a higher risk sport than the game of football? I just don't have, we don't have any data supporting that. And they're making these determinations without factual information, was difficult to swallow. And then you're talking about basketball. So, guys boxing each other out, breathing on each other. I just don't understand how that's, not a high risk sport, and football was considered a high risk sport. So there's just so many questions and uncertainties, and it is what it is. It's frustrating, but like I said earlier, this is where we are, and we got to roll with it.
Coach Knickerbocker, the miscommunication, I think, and people are mad for a lot of reasons, for one way or another. But I think one of the top reasons, if you wanted to rank, well, they're mad for this reason, and this reason. I think one of the top reasons is because there's been people, and Coach Frederick alluded to, about how people ask the question, what deems this sport high risk? What deems it moderate risk? But then when you ask people from DPH, or you ask anybody, even when you ask the governor, they don't have an answer. So that's the part that I think is so frustrating. Like Coach Frederick alluded to, why is it where football is high risk, but basketball, I've been broadcasting and watching basketball since I was a kid. And last time I checked, they're not playing 10 feet social distancing. They're playing body to body, boxing out. Basically, I've said this on the air a couple times. Basketball is like football without pads.
Yeah, one of the studies that came out during the fall, it was one of the college conferences that they put the bands on all the players, football players, and they showed that the only relationship on the field that could possibly be more than 15 minutes, which is CDC guidelines, was a nose guard versus center if there is no substitutions. Okay, now there's no way in other sports that's true. The other sports, you are locked up much longer. I think people just think of football, and I think one of the problems that we're in right now is people think of football and they just think it's dangerous. And and there is something to be said that our sport is under attack. It's been under attack for a while. And, with this, I think it was like, oh, yeah, football is definitely out. Originally, basketball was high risk. Now it's no longer high risk. And I want to see all these kids play. If it's safe, don't get me wrong. I don't want to see anyone not play. I was happy to see that kids were able to play in the fall. But then what we were told is it's not the sport, it's all the other things. Well, we practiced every day without a locker room. Our kids got dropped off. We didn't use buses. We practiced during the fall and did our 7-on-7. We used no locker rooms, right? We did no team gatherings. We had no team meetings indoors. We did all of these things that you're saying are the reason why we can't play because we're bigger. It's because that was then the narrative. It's not the sport. It's all the other things that go around it. We already proved that you can do that. And I'm sure Coach can allude to that as well. it can be done. I would say the thing that's most frustrating right now is we are where we are, but if there's any possibility that these kids could play 2 or 3 games in the spring, they need to figure out a way to do it. And I just don't think, I think everyone's just moved on. And the problem is we're left just waiting, but I think everybody has moved on. And if there's a possibility to play at all in the spring and make it work, they should be looking into all that. And right now, I just don't feel that's happening.
Yeah, I think, going back to kind of what we said before, we started this interview, I think, Glenn really, in what he said in the Hartford Courant, was that he wanted to get, first things out of his mouth before anything was they want to get spring played one way or another, because spring didn't even have a chance. It was full, basically full out canceled. Falls had a chance, and I'll stay with Coach Knickerbocker here for one last question for him, and then I'll go to Coach Frederick. Fall played to some degree, and people could say, well, football played too. Well, that's an argument for another day. Winter, we're still waiting on. Spring, the CIAC will try everything as possible. I feel like they're going to run to, there's going to come a point where they may see, okay, well, spring didn't play, so spring will play, and football will, you already had your season, so you guys can just, you're canceled. You could play in the fall of 2021. I feel like that's not right still.
Yeah, that's, to me, is unacceptable. That what we did in the fall was not football, and Coach would say the same thing if you played independent. And my biggest concern, and this is what I reach out to the CIAC about, is as soon as they do cancel, don't think for a minute independent leagues are going to pop up left and right. Once high-risk sports are allowed again, it's going to be the same thing. And certain towns are going to be able to play. You're going to be pitting coaches against athletic directors and superintendents, the same nonsense that happened in the fall. You heard the story from Valley Regional with Coach King, one of the most, respected coaches in the state, and all that stuff that happened there. That's going to continue to happen. And because that's all going to come back. I don't think people don't think it's going to come back. I have parents already telling me, listen, if we don't play, I'm sending my kid to play independent. We got to get him playing because, he's a junior. He's never played varsity, and he's going to be a senior next year. We can't just go years without playing. So I don't know. I hope that the understanding, and that's what worries me the most, is that we're, if they're going to say we had an experience, well, we didn't have an experience enough where other people aren't going to find ways to play. And people will find ways to play. They put leagues together in weeks in the fall. Okay. If they cancel this in the next week or two, you think by April there's going to be independent football leagues, and that's what worries me. And I don't know, maybe it's a different situation. Maybe, it's not deemed high risk and schools are a little bit more able to work with teams. I don't know. I in my letter to the CIAC, I said, we got to think outside the box. I get it. Spring lost their whole season, but we're almost punishing football for playing a season last year when there was no pandemic. We're being punished because we played a football season before the pandemic. I don't understand that. The kids that were playing last year, they didn't say, hey, listen, there's going to be a pandemic coming up, so enjoy it this year because you're not going to get it again. I just don't think that's a fair argument. And listen, I understand spring sports should absolutely play. They have missed their whole season. The only thing, and I'll end with this, is those kids knew right away the season was canceled, and they were able, for the most part, and I'm not saying all, they were able to then go play that sport. My players that played baseball, they played baseball all summer, right? And my kids couldn't play football all summer. So that's a major concern that I just don't know that's being addressed. And it does worry me. With football, it does have the most participation in the state of Connecticut. So you have the most kids that play it. Now, if you played in the spring or you gave kids a choice, would it be a problem? Absolutely, it would be a problem. But because it's not going to be a perfect fit or it's not going to work perfectly, I don't think at this point, we can't just say no. We can't just say this is going to be too hard, so we can't try it. I think we need to be a little bit better than that. I think we failed the football in the fall, but it's over. If there's any opportunity to salvage it, we got to look at every single possible option. We got to ask and we got to find out what can be done instead of just saying, no, we can't mess that up. We can't change this. We can't do that. There's a lot of we can'ts. And Chris, you've talked about kids overcoming and persevering. I think we as a community, as a sports community, we have to figure out if there's an opportunity, we got to find a way to do it. And I think it can be done if the metrics, allow it to be. And with winter as well, if they go to cancel winter, why is it not a possible? Maybe this is, and again, I'm not trying to call anyone out. Maybe this is a possibility. If winter gets canceled, why is winter sports? Why wouldn't they just go into the alternate season too? Let the kids choose. Put winter to February 22nd. Add football in there. Is it perfect? No. Are there problems? Yes. But these are all better options than just saying, yeah, you know what, sorry, we got to push winter and we got to keep spring, so football, you're out. That's, to me, is just not an acceptable answer, at least from where I'm sitting. All right, sorry, I don't want to go on a rant. Said I wasn't. I told my idea I would be very good.
Guys, Coach Frederick, I apologize. We've just about run out of time. Hopefully I'll have you back on in your future and give you as much time as possible. But guys, I really do appreciate Coach Knickerbocker. Thanks so much for being able to come back on to talk about what could be a very, very big decision coming up in the next couple weeks.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Coach Frederick, thank you so much as well. I really do appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem. That wraps things up in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent, and I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a good one, everybody, and be well.